bottomless pit. The Greek word for pit, abyssos, means without a base, and can simply be translated as the abyss. This pit of the Bible is said to be the access point to the lowest compartment of hell, which is located at the center of the earth. The lowest hell, or Tartarus, as described in 2 Peter 2:4 in the New Testament, is where the fallen angels that betrayed God are confined in the chains of darkness, awaiting their final judgment. In 1989, the Kola Super Deep borehole in Russia was purportedly drilled so deep that it broke through into hell. The legend holds that a team of Soviet engineers, led by an individual named Mr. Azakov, in an unnamed place in Siberia, had drilled a hole that was 9 miles deep before breaking into a cavity. Intrigued by this unexpected discovery, they lowered an extreme heat-tolerant microphone, along with other sensory equipment, into the well. The temperature within the borehole was a staggering 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit, and what was more unnerving was that screaming from hell was recorded. The Soviet Union had in fact drilled a hole more than 7.5 miles deep. However, the Kola Super Deep borehole was not located in Siberia, but on the Kola Peninsula, which shares borders with Norway and Finland. Upon reaching the depth of 40,230 feet, geological anomalies were found, although they reported no supernatural encounters. The recording of the tormented screams was later found to be looped together from various sound effects, and sometimes identified as the soundtrack of the 1972 movie Barren Blood. However, in 1997, a second pit, this time located in the United States, gained notoriety for its own supernatural occurrences. Soon, a story about a mythical bottomless pit located somewhere on the Manastash Ridge in Washington State would take a life of its own. So what is the real story behind MEL'S hole? And what was found in the pit? And what happened to it? Let's try and find out.
Hello, I'm Mike Droberg, a Marine Corps veteran and filmmaker, and we will try to answer these questions on today's episode of Forgotten History.
On Mel Waters' property in the Manastash Ridge, west of Ellensburg, Washington, there is a hole in the ground that looks like a well, but it's not a well. Like the owners of the property before him, Mel used the hole as a trash dump. His neighbors used it too. Garbage, broken appliances, old tires, everything went into the hole. After a while, Mel started to wonder, why doesn't it fill up? Then he started to notice other strange things about the hole. His dogs wouldn't go near it. It caused his radio to pick up strange signals, and it didn't seem to have a bottom. Mel's curiosity would soon become an obsession. The story of Mel's hole became known to the public on the 21st of February 1997 when he phoned into Coast to Coast with Art Bell, a nationally syndicated AM talk show, to tell his story. At the time, Coast to Coast AM was the most popular place to discuss all things paranormal, weird, and unexplained. He captivated Bell and the listeners with his tales of a seemingly bottomless hole on his property that possessed mystical qualities. Local legend also said it was cursed. He said a neighbor tossed his dead dog into the hole, only to see it later, alive, roaming around with a hunter, and the dog wouldn't come to him. He also said he lowered a weighted fishing line down the hole, and he ran out of several reels of heavy line after going more than 80 feet deep without touching bottom. Waters told Bell others had seen a black beam coming from the hole, and still others claimed portable radios held close to the hole's entrance would play programs and music from the past. He claimed that metals would mysteriously change into other metals or substances whenever he held them near the entrance of the hole. Waters went on to describe many of his experiments at the pit, and each one seemed to produce a more unsettling result than the last. He described lowering a bucket of ice down to 1,500 feet, and when he lifted it out, he noticed that the ice was warm, but it did not melt. He said it changed into a flammable substance. The warm ice was not the only time his experiments defied the laws of science. When he yelled down into the hole, he claimed there was no echo. There was also no sound after large trash items, such as refrigerators or televisions, were thrown into the pit to confirm that they had a bottom. One of Waters' most disturbing claims involved lowering a live sheep into the hole to around 1,500 feet, as he did in the ice bucket experiment. The sheep shrieked and kicked on the way down, but then it suddenly went silent. When Waters lifted it out, he found the animal had been cooked alive. The talk of MEL'S hole eventually got big enough that the federal government caught wind of it. As Waters recounted in a later call, he was heading towards the hole one day when a man in a suit approached him and said that the area had been closed off due to a plane crash. The man told Waters that he was no longer allowed near the pit. Waters described seeing men in biohazard suits standing behind him. Soon after, the government leased the land and gave him a generous amount of money to vacate the property. Waters accepted the money and moved to Australia. The addition of the government conspiracy significantly increased interest in the urban legend. However, checks by local newspapers later found no public records indicating that Mel Waters lived in Catitas County or that he owned rural property. But the story wasn't over. Many called in and claimed to have searched for the hole and said to have found it, but no one has ever revealed publicly the exact location of the pit. All they would say is that it was on Manastash Ridge, some 9 to 10 miles southwest of Ellensburg. Finally, State Department of Natural Resources geologist Jack Powell of Ellensburg, who was amongst those listening during one of the earliest coast-to-coast AM shows with Mel Waters, said he was driving back home from an out-of-town test when he heard the show. "It got my interest in a funny kind of way," said Powell. Powell, who worked as an exploratory geologist for petroleum companies, taught geology at Central Washington University for 11 years, and has worked with the Department of Natural Resources for more than 20 years, thought he knew where the hole was. When Powell heard on the radio show that Mel's hole was said to be on the Manastash Ridge and more than 80,000 feet deep, well, he couldn't listen any longer. He knew the deepest mine shaft in the world was 12,672 feet deep, and the deepest known cavern was 7,188 feet deep. Powell, who has 30 years experience exploring the geology of eastern Washington, and especially lower Catitas County and the Manastash Ridge, knew the area in detail. "Geologically and physically, it's not possible for a hole to be that deep," Powell said. "It would collapse into itself under tremendous pressure and heat from the surrounding strata." He concluded whoever Mel Waters was, he probably knew about the hole northwest of Ellensburg that's on private property, fenced in with barbed wire, and not too far from state lands. "I suppose this Mel Waters used the real hole as a kind of inspiration for making up his mysterious one on Manastash Ridge," Powell said. After listening to the radio show, Powell didn't think much about it for quite a time, until 2001, when he was contacted by a member of the Seattle area discussion group that was studying Mel's hole. The caller was part of an online chat club. They were hoping for geological information about the area as part of their coming here to search for Mel's hole, Powell said. He agreed to talk to them in the interest of giving them accurate information about the local geology, he said. Powell said he gave a standard lecture and a scientific overview in layman's terms of the geology of Catitas County and some specifics about Manastash Ridge. He also guided the group to the old mine shaft and told them it was the inspiration for the mythical Mel's hole. "The hole on Manastash Ridge doesn't exist," he said. "They thanked me and served me up some pie they had," said Powell about the dessert the group ordered from the Copper Kettle restaurant. But they wouldn't let go of the possibility of Mel's hole. That group later formed the Seattle Paranormal Society. Powell acknowledged that Mel's hole has become a surprisingly long-lived legend based on no evidence at all. But what do you think? Did Mel's hole really exist? And was it covered up by the government? Let us know in the comments below.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments or show ideas, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again.